on this subject, okay, we might go to Senator Ludlam first then. Senator Ludlam?
Thanks. Apologies, I missed the opening of Senator Boswell's line of questioning. Is Mr Warburton likely to appear in front of the committee today?
No, Senator.
Can you just let us know why that is and just in what capacity you're here? An apology that I missed the beginning of your evidence.
Certainly, Senator. Brad Archer, I'm the head of the Secretariat within the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet that's been established to support the expert panel undertaking the review. Dick Warburton was not invited, and we did not receive any request for him to appear today, not to my knowledge.
So it's up to the committee to request it. He hasn't been prevented from appearing or anything?
No.
Okay, no, we might come back to it in May, that's fine.
Well, I wouldn't want any suggestion to be made that it was a requirement that he should be
No, that's
here
fine. It's generally done by request, that's fine.
Yeah, and even if a request were to be made, I would doubt very much whether it would be appropriate for such a person to come before an estimates committee.
Why is that, Senator Abetz? Is the position paid, or is it voluntary?
I don't know. Is it?
Senator, it's David Hazelhurst, Acting Deputy Secretary, Economic and Strategy. The remuneration arrangements for the panel are still to be settled.
It's not a voluntary position, though, is it? That's what I'm trying to establish. He's being paid by the Commonwealth to undertake an important review.
There will be a sitting fee we would expect associated with that. I agree with the Minister, it would be unusual for a member of an independent panel to be called before an estimates committee, but obviously that would be a matter for the committee to work out.
Your staff are paid by the taxpayer as well, Senator Ludlam, but we have a long-standing convention that we don't call them before these committees to question how they're spending taxpayers' money. Officials are called to give an account, but I'm not sure that it is usual for people undertaking inquiries on behalf of the government to be called before an estimates committee. Sorry?
Well, as I recall, Senator, you called Mr Flannery, Professor Flannery, and created quite a fuss to make sure he attended. I could probably find a few other examples, but anyway, that's a matter for you.
We might test this for May, for May estimates.
He was appointed as climate change ambassador on a permanent basis, was he not? Professor Flannery?
I don't know what the term was, Senator.
Yeah, him. It was a full-time, or not a full-time, but a permanent part-time appointment on $180,000, if I recall, telling us the Brisbane River would never flood.
Can we just come back to topic, Minister? I might just ask you to check the precedent, as Senator Wong's advised, for May budget estimates if he's on the payroll, and I'd put to you, Senator Abetz, that that's very different to the case of a Senate office staffer. He's been invited to conduct a very important review for the Commonwealth, but I'll leave it there and we'll revisit the issue in May. Could you just inform us why the Secretariat for the review is being run out of the Prime Minister's office instead of either out of the Department of Environment or Industry, and exactly who does Mr Warburton report to, or who does this review report to?
To take the latter part of the question first, Senator, the terms of reference specify that the panel is to provide a report to the Prime Minister, the Treasurer and the Ministers for Industry and the Environment.
All right, so you're providing secretarial support. So is this, he will actually report directly to the Prime Minister as well as to the other portfolios that you just identified?
Oh, that's straight out of the terms of reference, Senator. That's
straight out of the terms of reference. All right then. So obviously the Prime Minister takes this review very seriously. I think that's Senator Abetz is nodding, just for the record.
The government does, the Prime Minister does.
Yeah, okay. What expertise on energy markets does Mr Warburton bring to bear? Is there an area or something on his CV from his past that's not been publicly disclosed that qualifies him for this position?
Senator, the government has appointed a panel with a mix of skills.
Yep.
and certainly Mr Warburton is a very experienced business person.
What experience has he got in electricity markets particularly? And it's a very specific area of expertise.
Senator, I'm not entirely aware of what specific expertise Mr Warburton may have.
Is it possible that he has
in
none?
electricity sector markets? I would not care to speculate. Clearly he has a lot of experience from the business perspective, and he has undertaken roles in the past, for example, in relation to the arrangements that were established for assistance provided to emissions-intensive trade-exposed entities under former climate change policies.
Yeah, familiar with that. This question was very specifically going to the operation of electricity markets.
And there is also...
well, we have a panel, do we not?
Yes.
And the panel does have some expertise, I'm aware of that.
Yeah.
Yep. One of them's a West Australian, or maybe more than one.
And so with a panel, one usually seeks a mix of talent and backgrounds.
Yeah, but it's a reasonable question to ask, I would have thought.
Yes, but it's also reasonable to indicate to you that there are the other three, is it?
Three, Mr Zima, Ms Interveld and Mr Fisher.
Yeah, the other three have expertise in the specific area. And then, of course, the impact on business, well, I would have thought Mr Warburton has very good business credentials.
Yep, but we're moving away from what my question was. Could you're not certain, you haven't been able to clarify it, but if you could maybe take that on notice if there is something that you want to bring to light, specifically around energy markets or electricity markets or reform in that area. Thanks. Did the department inquire about investigations being made during his time as a board member of Note Printing Australia? Is that something that you were aware of at the time that he was engaged?
Senator, the department took an approach in relation to all the prospective panel members around ensuring that they'd undertaken a standard due diligence exercise, and that process was undertaken by each of the panel members.
Yep. And so were you aware at the time that Mr Warburton came on board to conduct this review of those investigations?
No, Senator.
You were not. When was the first time that was brought to your attention?
So it has been brought to my attention personally, Senator, subsequently as a result of media reports.
Media reports, okay. Was the Reserve Bank's KPMG review requested by the department for the purposes of carrying out a due diligence or fit and proper purpose test, or however you want to put it?
No, Senator. As part of the due diligence process, a range of questions were presented to the prospective panel members as part of a declaration form.
Mr Warburton presumably didn't disclose this at the time.
That's correct, Senator, but it's not apparent to me that there would be any reason for him to disclose it.
Not materially relevant, you'd say, for the role that he's undertaking at the moment?
Well, certainly not relevant to the questions as directed through the private interest declaration form.
Okay. So why does the department not see it as being a material factor? It wasn't disclosed. You didn't have any visibility of the KPMG report at the time. You found out about this as a result of press reporting. Why do you not see it as being a material factor?
So from my point of view, Senator, there is nothing in those issues that goes to a standard that suggests that Mr Warburton is not a suitable person to undertake the role of the chair of the panel.
All right, we'll see about that, won't we? What class of contract is Mr Warburton on for chairing the rep review? We might have traversed this a little bit before, I think. Sorry, I can't see your name tag, but this was spoken of briefly before. And what sort of due diligence checks are normally undertaken for this class of contract?
So as my colleague Mr Hazelhurst indicated earlier, the arrangements for compensating or remunerating panel members are still being settled. In terms of the second part of the question, there's a private interest declaration form which was provided to each of the prospective panel members for completion. There are a range of questions on that declaration form, as well as a general assurance sought in relation to private business and financial interests and the extent to which they may conflict with the public duties in question.
Okay, so...
Senator, I should
go
just
ahead.
add there that this is the normal process for, indeed, for cabinet appointments that has operated for many years is the process that was undertaken for these appointments. So there was no sort of special arrangement, but this was just the normal process that would be undertaken for appointments made by the government.
Okay, so just explain to me how this works. During the period that Mr Warburton was a director of Note Printing Australia, the Federal Police have alleged that the company repeatedly engaged in very, very serious foreign bribery activities across Asia. Can you tell us how you consider that that's not a material fact that should have been disclosed while you were conducting your search for candidates?
So the questions, Senator, on the form go to whether there are any disclosable criminal convictions and whether there are any current civil or criminal court actions.
So there's not a specific question as to whether allegations have been made or investigations are ongoing?
No, Senator.
Maybe you want to amend your form.
Well, that's out of my responsibility, Senator.
Past that, this is the Federal Police. It's not coming completely from left field, Senator Boswell. Has that caused you to reconsider whether Mr Warburton's an appropriate person to conduct this review? Or are you completely comfortable now that you have discovered these matters as a result of seeing them on television?
Well, it's not really a matter of whether I'm completely comfortable or not, Senator, but the government's intention is that the review proceeds as announced.
That's fair enough. I guess that's more of a political question, isn't it, Senator Betts?
Look, I don't know the answer to the actual issue, but one can be the director of a company in circumstances where somebody else acts in an inappropriate manner of which you are not aware, and that malfeasance, therefore, should not be visited upon others who may have been completely and utterly unaware of it.
Senator Betts, what have you done or what have you asked the department to do once these disclosures came to light to assure yourself that that is the case, if anything?
Oh, look, I'll take that question on notice. It wasn't up to me to assure myself, but... Is
that running out of the Prime Minister's office?
Sorry?
That's run out of the Prime Minister's office?
Oh, well, this panel was appointed, as I understand it, to report to the Prime Minister, the Treasurer and Ministers for Industry and the Environment.
So who's ultimately responsible for the due diligence that didn't occur in the original selection process?
You are making an assertion that due diligence didn't occur, and I reject that, but in relation to the due diligence, I think it was indicated on this P1C.
Yeah, and it was as Mr Hazelhurst said, it was the same due diligence.
You're a little quiet, I'm sorry, Ms Cross.
As said previously, it was the same due diligence as applies to all appointments. So the same due diligence process was followed in this instance.
Yeah, but not all the other appointees have been investigated by the Federal Police on really serious corruption allegations.
Wait a minute. Is Mr Warburton doing? So, sorry, are you saying...
The Federal Police were investigating Note Printing Australia at the same time as Mr Warburton was a board member?
That is different. That is different to what you just try to slide into the Hansard about Mr Warburton being investigated by the Australian Federal Police on very serious allegations. And
all right, Senator
that is
Betts.
why I said be very careful that you have innocent people being involved in organisations where malfeasance has occurred, of which they were completely unaware.
I'll acknowledge that clarification, Senator
and
Betts.
until a connection is made, I suggest we be exceptionally careful.
No, I accept your clarification, Senator Betts. It was actually KPMG that was undertaking the inquiry into Mr Warburton. It's an earlier matter around allegations around Saddam Hussein and others. I'll leave that there for the time being. Maybe without editorialising, Senator Abetz, could you indicate what process the government, whoever it is who is ultimately responsible, took to make yourselves completely comfortable that Mr Warburton is an appropriate person to lead this review once those allegations came to light? The officer here has said it wasn't disclosed during the selection process. You discovered it later on in the media. So there must have been some follow-up, if not by Mr Archer, then by somebody else.
Oh, look, I'll take that on notice.
Thanks, Senator Abetz.
Senator, if you could draw your questions to a close, that would be appreciated in the interest of time.
I'll put a couple on notice, if I may. What conflicts of interest were declared to the department in relation to shareholdings or income from other sources, including lobbying, consultancy or directorship work during your review process?
We'll take that on notice, Senator.
Okay. Has the department taken any steps to resolve or otherwise deal with any declared interest? The media's picked up on some. I'm wondering whether the department picked up on any.
We'll take that on notice too.
Okay.
Some dates.
Dates. Shoot, Christine.
Just while we're on this, could you tell me what...
Senator Milne, sorry.
Sorry.
Are you seeking the call?
I'm happy to see the call.
Well, I was just drawing your questioning to a close because there are other senators that have been waiting quite some time. But Senator Milne, if you have a question, I'm happy for you to present that whilst the officers are there. Otherwise, we'll have to get you back a bit later.
Okay, well, I'll just... So I just wondered, what date were all of the appointees to the RET review asked to sign and return their declaration of interests by?
Senator, the form in question was put to the people in question on the 13th of February, and it was returned completed by each of the people on that date.
On the 13th of February?
Yes.
So why did one of them say that she wasn't asked to provide such a thing?
Senator, I understand you're referring to a report in this morning's media. There does seem to have been a misunderstanding on the part of the journalist as to the information that was provided by the person in question, but it is absolutely the case that we have completed forms from each of the panel members and that they were provided on the 13th of February.
But Ms Veld said 2 days after the announcement of the panel, I wasn't asked, but I don't have any conflicts. The whole quote is, it's generally accepted practice that any conflict of interest would be declared up front without being asked, Ms Veld said 2 days after the announcement of the panel. I wasn't asked, but I don't have any conflicts. So can you explain why she wasn't asked? Or are you saying she was asked and she just said that?
So again, Senator, she was asked to complete the form and she did so.
Clearly there's been some crosswires somewhere, if that evidence, and we've got no reason to doubt the evidence of the official, either the journalist or the panel member may have misunderstood the question, misunderstood the answer. Yeah, but I don't think we can shed more light on it here.
Okay. You're going to seek my indulgence, aren't you, Senator Ludlam?
I know you're a very patient person, Senator.
Well, indeed, I have to be.
I'll just finish up, if I may. Is there a fit and proper person test? Would you describe it as that, or is it? How do you identify appropriate people to conduct a review as specific as this?
Well, I wouldn't characterise it as a fit and proper person test, Senator. Certainly, when names are considered for panels such as these, consideration is given to the expertise that's required to be on the panel to undertake an effective review. And so, as we indicated before, there's a range of expertise amongst the panel members on the RET review panel.
All right. Regarding Mr Warburton in particular, though, were you aware when you conducted the interviews with him and did your due diligence that he disagrees with the vast bulk of global scientific consensus that global warming even exists? Or was that something you found out about in the media as well?
Senator, Mr Warburton's public statements, along with the public statements of the other members of the review panel, were of course aware, the department was aware of those. They're public statements on the record.
So you knew that he was a climate change denier when you took him on to review the renewable energy?
Terms are not appropriate.
It's not pejorative at all.
It is.
I've heard deniers describe themselves as deniers.
It's not. And the public record shows that Mr Warburton has said that is not the case.
Should I call him a sceptic, or how would you propose that I address him, Senator?
You could call him a realist if you want my opinion, but that's not the point. My
should
opinion is
never
not
have
valid
asked,
here.
should I?
You should refer to him with respect and the dignity that he is, and not in pejorative terms. It's only fair.
But these are the views that I'm referring to, that you've acknowledged. You're aware from his public comments that he disagrees with the scientific consensus on climate change, and yet you've appointed him to conduct a review into the key technology to offset it. Now, if he doesn't believe it's necessary...
Look, we can get into all the debates here as to scientific consensus, etc.
That's not what I'm getting into.
And which scientist said what, but we'll be here all night.
That's all right. I'm proposing not to do that, Senator Abetz. So how could he possibly qualify to conduct a review into the key technology for offsetting greenhouse gas emissions if he doesn't believe that there's a public policy issue to address?
Well, the terms of reference speak for themselves, and whether the objective of the RET scheme to deliver 41,000 gigawatt hours and small-scale solar generation by 2020 is still appropriate, the extent of the RET's impact on electricity prices and the range of options available to reduce any impact while managing sovereign risk, the operation of small-scale large components of the RET and their interaction, etc. And I would have thought you could undertake and provide that advice.
He will necessarily discover that it's inappropriate if he doesn't believe that there's a public policy issue that needs addressing. Appropriate to do what? To deal with an imaginary problem that he doesn't believe exists?
No, whether the objective is of the scheme is still appropriate, given...
appropriate to do what?
Well, that is what this review will decide, and so you're saying that you have to be a red-hot, a Tim Flannery who,
no, you just have to
who
understand
told us
Year
many
9
times
science.
the Brisbane River would never
Just
flood
a basic
again, and it
understanding of Year 9
has.
science.
So he would be disqualified, one would imagine.
No.
He wouldn't be, despite his predictions being palpably wrong. We would still have him on this. Look, this panel is providing advice in relation to these matters, and whether you're a signed-up believer or denier, to use your pejorative terminology, should not impact in relation to the matters.
So he has no experience in electricity markets that we've been able to identify.
Well,
he doesn't believe climate
change
exists.
He might have a fair idea of the impact of electricity prices on doing business and our export capacity, on our manufacturing capacity, etc. I would have thought he might have some real opportunity to value add to this inquiry, given that he's got 3 other panel members that are expert in that specific area.
How many candidates did you interview for the position of chair?
I have no idea.
Senator, there wasn't an interview process.
Or how many candidates did you assess for the position of chair?
In a normal way of these things, a range of names were provided to the government.
How big was the range?
I don't know.
And who
I'll
provided
take that on notice.
Who provided the list of candidates initially?
Again, in the normal way of things, the relevant department, and in this case it was the Prime Minister's department, in consultation with the Industry Department and the Environment Department, came up with a list of names, and those were provided to the Prime Minister and to the relevant ministers.
And how many of those did you actually conduct some kind of due diligence or assessment, or if you don't want to call it an interview, that's fine, but how many people did you actively assess for the position of chair?
Sorry. The due diligence process is a process that is undertaken once the government has made an indicative decision about the proposed appointees, and that's then a process of checking for conflicts of interest, etc.
One final question, Senator London.
Was Mr Warburton the only person that you then considered and conducted this test for as far as the position of chair goes? Was he or were there a few?
I think perhaps, Senator, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. So the process of checking for conflicts of interest and for other issues to do with the suitability of a person that relate to things like criminal convictions and things like that only occur in respect of the short list of people who are actually being considered by the government for appointment. Maybe that's what I'm missing then.
How big was your short list for consideration for the position of chair? Was it a short list of one, or were there more people on it?
I think I'll have to take that question on notice.
Really?
Thank you, Mr.
Just, if I may, Chair.
Senator Mackenzie.
Has the process for appointing chairs to this type of inquiry changed over time?
Not materially, Senator, no.
So
in this case,
process that you've been going through is similar to other like examples under other governments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, before I go to you, Senator Wong, Senator Smith has some questions on this particular matter, and then I will come to you on this matter too.
Maybe it's time for the opposition to have a question.
Well, indeed, the opposition's had a lot of question time, and the Greens as well.
Well, we're not the same party.
You're not in alliance anymore. I think you're very close anyway, however you want to describe it.
They don't want your votes, mate. They want
you got more time with these interjections. They are disorderly. Senator Smith.
Thanks very much, Chair. Just on the issue of the review, if I understand it correctly, there are three primary objectives. One is to progress to look at the progress of the scheme against its original intentions, look at investment certainty, and look at what the scheme does in terms of its relationship with electricity prices. And I'm just wondering, Mr Hazelhurst, whether or not you accept that Mr Dick Warburton's previous positions on the Reserve Bank, and I think he was appointed by Prime Minister Keating and Treasurer John Dawkins, would sort of assist him in that role?
That's an opinion question.
Yes, it is a question of opinion, but it doesn't go to policy.
No, but he shouldn't be asked a question of opinion.
I can answer that.
Well, of course, sorry, Minister.
It's a very good point that you make, and I think Mr Warburton has had the confidence of both sides of politics throughout his career, and the attempt at besmirching by the Greens was a singularly distasteful.
Thank you, Minister. I've got two other points, and I'll see how you rate these also. Back on the 24th of February 2011, the Treasurer Wayne Swan and the Assistant Treasurer Bill Shorten thanked Mr Dick Warburton for his tremendous service as Chair since the Board was established in September 2000. I might just quote, under Mr Warburton, the Board has grown to become an important participant in Australia's tax system, helping contribute a business and broader community perspective into the design and operation of taxation laws. And finally, from Senator Wong, on the 14th of January 2010, in regards to Mr Warburton, Mr Dick Warburton, was appointed as someone who had some knowledge of industry to advise us on the best way to structure industry assistance, and he was provided very sound advice about how to structure that industry assistance under the scheme. We've certainly listened to that advice, and that's why we have got a very sound architecture for delivering industry assistance.
As Tony Jones would say on Q&A, I'll take that as a comment.
Thanks, Chair.
Well, thank you, Senator Smith. Senator Wong, you had some questions on this.
Actually, yes, I'd like to move to ministerial staff shortly, but I did. You may have answered it. It may not have been paying attention. But what is the basis of is it a panel? Is that what you're calling them? How many is it? Three? Four. What is the basis of their engagement?
Senator, the specific terms of those are still to be settled, but it will be in keeping with the normal arrangements of a daily.
Well, what sort of engagement is it in accordance? If you were to look at the Commonwealth procurement rules, could you tell me what type of engagement it is? Is it a limited tender? Is it, I think, what do you call it, an eminent persons engagement? Tell me. Well, could you please give that evidence? Tell us what it is.
Well, I would have. It's an expert panel.
Someone should know the basis of the engagement. You are the central agency. Tell me where this fits in terms of the Commonwealth procurement rules.
Yeah, Senator, I'll be able to give you later this evening the precise technical expression, but it's on a part-time basis. Paid per diem.
No, I'm not actually asking about the terms. I'm not asking about how much. I'm asking about the legal basis of the procurement of this, legal basis of this engagement. So the Commonwealth procurement rules sets out a range of categories, and I'm just trying to ascertain which one is being used for the purposes of this engagement.
Remuneration will be consistent with the government's policy on.
I'm not asking about terms. I'm not asking about terms. Was there a limited tender?
We'll check for you, but I think it was more an appointment process than a procurement, but we'll check that for you. What I can say is that the process is consistent with the way similar panels have been appointed in the past.
Perhaps after the break you could come back and advise me.
I don't think it was a procurement, but we'll check
panels
that for you.
usually aren't by procurement.
Well, that's not actually correct. So perhaps you could. Well, it's not. Perhaps after the break you could come back and advise me about the basis of engagement.
I don't think so.
Okay. I'm happy for you to come back on it. That's fine. We'll be back after dinner. So.
Sure, we'll do that.
Can I continue? I was going to move to another topic.
Do we have any more questions on this? I think we've exhausted this for the moment. So, yes.
Not for the moment.
Well, we've exhausted it.
Excellent.
So, Senator Wong, we'll move on to what was your area?
Ministerial staff.
Ministerial staff.
Okay, so on the last occasion we had a lengthy discussion about the appointment process for ministerial staff, and Senator Abetz gave me answered some questions about the Government Staffing Committee. And he indicated there was a process of looking at applications, matching applications and recommendations. So I just want to, being then made to the Prime Minister, so I just want to confirm the answer that was given, that the Prime Minister in fact approves all personal staff appointments. In fairness to you, Senator Abetz, the reference question is 20.
Sorry, is?
20.
What are those answers? Does somebody have them available, please? I'm trying to find where mine are. Here we go, finally finding them. So that's...
The answer you gave is the Prime Minister approves all personal staff appointments.
Yes.
That's correct. Okay. And the process that you gave evidence about, Senator Abetz, is that the committee considers applications and then makes a recommendation. Correct?
That's correct.
And just remind me, Senator, are you on that committee?
No, I'm not.
No longer. Okay. Are you able, as the Prime Minister's representative, to tell me on which date the Prime Minister personally approved the appointment of Mr. Alastair Furnival?
I'll have to take that on notice.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Can you tell me on which date or dates did the Ministerial Staffing Committee consider Mr. Furnival's appointment?
Well, I will have to take that on notice as well.
We'll be back after the break. I'm sure the Prime Minister's office are watching. Can you tell me on those occasions that the Government Staffing Committee considered occasions that they considered Mr. Furnival's appointment, could you please advise whether the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff was in attendance at those meetings, and whether Mr. Nutt was in attendance at those meetings, and also whether Mr Loughnane was in attendance at those meetings.
I will take all that on notice.
Well, I'm going to come back to it after the break. So.
Well, I doubt that I'll have the answers to those matters through the dinner break.
Well, I'll come back to them. It is the case that Mr Loughnane attends meetings. I think you've answered.
Sometimes.
On what occasions does he attend? How is that determined?
Look, rarely on an ad hoc basis, as I understand it, but I'll get you the detail of it. But I think he appears less than about a quarter of the time. And in fact, in answer to a question from yourself, reference 22, Mr Loughnane has been invited to attend on an occasional basis, given his experience as a former Chief of Staff to a Cabinet Minister and in the private sector.
And who invites him?
The committee.
The Prime Minister's Chief of Staff?
The committee does.
And what is the basis of the invitation? Like, when do they decide that?
Oh, well, they will undoubtedly make a decision that it might be beneficial to have Mr Loughnane along.
Can you... I presume the normal process would... Well, let's just go through the process. So, applications have come into this... Is it a central pool?
It varies.
Okay.
Applications can go into a central pool. Individuals can apply to individual ministers who then submit it to the Government Staff Committee.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Staffing Committee then consider. Typically, would it be dealt with in one meeting, or might it take longer for senior appointments?
Oh, look, it varies. So I don't think that one can assert that there is one particular process that takes place.
Did you attend any meetings at which Mr Furnival's appointment was considered?
I didn't attend any meetings.
After the committee determines or makes a recommendation, that is communicated to the Prime Minister how?
I'll have to take that on notice.
You don't know?
No, I don't know. Ultimately, as the Prime Minister's answer says, the buck stops with him in relation to that.
But that's not an answer to the question I just asked.
How it's communicated, whether it's verbally, in writing, I don't know, but I'll take it on notice.
And how is the Prime Minister's decision then communicated to the relevant minister?
Usually by a representative of the Government Staff Committee. I would imagine, and I'll correct the record if I'm wrong on this, but I think usually by the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff. And
would that be done in writing or verbally?
Look, once again, I'll have to take it on notice, right. But when things are finalised, I understand the process is in writing.
From the Prime Minister or from the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff?
No, from the Chief of Staff or somebody else from the Government Staff Committee, because, as you might imagine, the Prime Minister would be signing a lot of letters otherwise. So,
are you able to tell us on what date the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff wrote to Senator Nash approving Mr Furnival's appointment?
Look, no, I can't, and I'll have to take that on notice.
Right. I'll come back to that correspondence later. After the or at the time that the appointment has been confirmed by this process, I assume there is some process whereby ministerial and parliamentary services are informed of ministerial staff appointments, personal staff appointments.
Well, I dare say, because otherwise they wouldn't get paid.
Correct. So does the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet have any role in making and advising MAPS of that fact?
No.
So who advises MAPS?
I'm sorry, Senator, the department has no involvement in this issue at all.
You don't tell the Department of Finance who the Prime Minister has employed for the purposes of them getting paid. So who does that?
I'm imagining that it would be the Minister's office in which the member was employed, but
you're imagining?
It's not something which the department is involved, Senator.
I want to ask about when staff seek to gain a position, are they required at the point at which the staffing committee, well, let's go back, at which point are they required to disclose any statements of interests or any relevant interests?
There's a good question. The official statement of interests has to be...
I'll come to the formal statement under the standards. But that's not what I'm asking about now. So, at the time the staffing committee consider a proposed appointment, is there any requirement upon applicants to disclose any relevant interest at that point, and or do they?
I would imagine that the interview process would include that, but once again, it would vary if there's a written application. I've just been told that going back to your earlier question, Ministerial and Parliamentary Services or Finance is advised when the signed contract is forwarded to the department, and that is when payment commences. Now, sorry, your question again? I got distracted by...
it was in relation to the disclosure.
Oh, disclosure, that's right. So it would depend if somebody puts in a written application, for example, that one would assume that is not necessarily mentioned immediately, and so there would be a interview process, a bit of research undertaken, etc., to ascertain.
And do you know if Mr Furnival disclosed his interests at the point at which, or prior to the point at which, the staffing committee considered his appointment?
Well, I understand that those matters and his involvement in APA, was it?
APA?
Yes, APA was
Sorry, Ms Kelly, you do have...
was disclosed. Well, it's in the public domain with many stories.
Ms Kelly had no knowledge of it.
With many stories, so I understand that was disclosed.
You understand that was disclosed to the staffing committee? So, do you understand it to have been fully disclosed? That is, his directorship and a 50% shareholding in the company which wholly owned a lobbying firm which had food industry clients, or which had food industry clients?
I think there was...
There's two companies, I think, Strategic Issues Management and Australian Public Affairs.
But may I assist Senator Betts? I understand the Prime Minister today, and I may assist you.
I know what the Prime Minister
The Prime Minister today said that Mr Furnival undertook to divest himself of those shares.
And he did so in...
So one can only presume it was disclosed.
Yes. So I'm just having a look here that he left his role as chairman at Australian Public Affairs last September, according to the press release of the 12th of February 2014 by Australian Public Affairs, and that the company had not made any representations in relation to the health portfolio.
So at the time, so just so I'm clear what you're saying, Senator Betts, at the time his appointment was first considered by the staffing committee, which included the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff, the staffing committee was aware of his shareholding.
Yes, yeah.
Can I just ask this question? You've been through the staffing committee process, as we've clarified on the previous occasion, Senator Betts. Do you attend at any point, if you're the minister whose appointment is being considered, whose staffing appointment is considered, are you invited to attend, or are you party to any discussion with the staffing committee?
Oh, look, in relation to mine, I was not and didn't seek to attend any. Whether others did or did not, I am not. So yeah, I'm not sure.
Do you know if Senator Nash was party to the discussions with the staffing committee?
That I don't know.
But your evidence would be consistent with Mr Dutton's assertion on the 19th of February when he told the 7:30 program that, of course, I knew, of course, as everybody else did, Mr Furnival's history.
Yes.
So
yes.
you knew too, Senator?
Oh, just in general terms, yes. Yeah.
How did you become aware of it, Senator?
There's a good question.
Yeah, no. How did you become aware of it? You said you were in general terms of his
background. I think it may have been when he reintroduced himself to me in the corridor in the ministerial wing, indicating that and that he was undertaking a temporary assignment with Minister Nash, and but I knew what his sort of role was as a representative of various companies.
How had you known that?
Gee, look.
No, had he come to as a representative of Cadbury in the Tasmanian context? Had he lobbied you previously?
He and I have had discussions in the past, but yeah, I think it was just general knowledge.
Right. And can we turn now to... it was general knowledge, including on the staffing committee and amongst cabinet members. Is that what you're telling us?
Look, at the end of the day, what the general knowledge of other people was, I don't know, but it is a requirement of the employees or prospective employees to disclose to their ministers or prospective minister, employing minister, any interests that might be relevant to their position.
Was the Prime Minister aware of Mr Furnival's history?
Well, look, that I don't know. I'll take that on notice.
Thank you. Presumably the Prime Minister's Chief of Staff was aware of his history?
Sorry, the
Prime Minister's Chief of Staff was aware of his history?
One assumes so, but yeah.
Prior to the discussion at the staffing committee?
Well, that I couldn't tell you, but yeah, one assumes so. But
do you know if Mr Furnival participated in the poly pedal?
That I personally don't know because I haven't, but there are reports to the effect, and yeah, I'm amazed at how many people I come across around Australia who have got a keen interest in cycling since a certain person got the leadership of the opposition in a poly pedal. So
very popular.
Yes. Senator Bernardi, I think you've partaken, haven't you?
I regret to say no, I haven't.
No, nor have I.
I have noted how much money it's raised for charity
yes,
and very good causes, and I think it's an inspiration to many Australians.
But I dare say the Prime Minister couldn't tell you everybody that's competed or involved themselves in the poly pedal because as they go around the country, many people involve themselves, which is a good thing. Raises lots of money for good causes.
Ms Cross, or whoever, I understand that your evidence is you had no involvement in this process, but I am asking whether any advice was sought at any point from Prime Minister and Cabinet in relation to Mr Furnival's appointment or employment?
No.
Now, we've had some evidence today and more generally about arrangements being put in place to deal with, supposedly to deal with conflicts of interests. I asked first, was PM&C asked to provide any advice at any point in relation to any such arrangements applying to Mr Furnival?
No.
Senator Abetz, when were those arrangements first developed? Well,
I would have to take that on notice.
Well, this has been a topic of significant focus in the Senate and the House of Representatives and on the public record, Senator. Are you telling me you can't tell us when the so-called conflict of interest arrangements, which the Prime Minister himself has referred to, you can't tell me when they were put in place?
Not in relation to Mr Furnival, the exact date, other than when disclosure was made, and the statement of APA indicates that he resigned his chairmanship and I think directorship.
When was disclosure made? You just said you can tell me that. When was disclosure made?
Well, the 12th of February 2014, Australian Public Affairs issued a statement saying...
Yeah, that was after the question was asked in the Senate.
No, Mr Furnival resigned and left his role last September. And if I recall correctly, 7th of September was the election, so one assumes it was shortly thereafter he may have got the gig with Senator Nash, and therefore it stands to reason that it was in that month that he resigned. It then says, following his appointment, the process began to transfer LSD's shareholding to me as his former co-director.
That is the statement of Mr Furnival's partner.
That's right.
I'm asking a different question. Your minister has asserted, as has the Prime Minister, that there were arrangements put in place, right? And I'm asking, in terms of what the Prime Minister and his office and or the Government Staffing Committee knew, when were those arrangements developed?
That I could not tell you as to the exact date when those arrangements were developed, but one assumes in tandem with his appointment.
Therefore, on the basis of that answer, it's possible he commenced work and was working for a period of time without any of the arrangements to which the Prime Minister referred actually being in place.
Well, look, if we want to go down that track, can I just remind you of the ministerial standards under your government that required all ministers to divest themselves of all private interests and shares, and for the full 18 months Senator Bob Carr was Minister for Foreign Affairs, he retained his shareholding in his lobbying company in direct breach. We also had a situation of Mr Epstein becoming the Chief of Staff to Prime Minister Rudd in his first iteration, where Mr Epstein's wife, partner, was a director of GRA, and whilst he was Chief of Staff, that company lobbied the Prime Minister's office in relation to resource matters. So let's just be careful before we pretend to be holier than thou in exploring this matter.
I'm asking questions. I'm just asking for answers, Senator.
Yes.
And what I said was,
and I've said I'll take it on notice.
Was it possible, therefore, given you can't tell us when these so-called arrangements were put in place, that Mr Furnival in fact commenced employment without any such arrangements being put in place?
I understand that not to be the case, but I will take it on notice.
You can't have it both ways, Senator Abetz. You can't say, I don't know, I can't tell you, but at the same time they were, and it's all okay. I should place on the record, I don't believe the arrangements did deal with a conflict of interest, nor did the arrangements comply with the statement of standards for ministerial staff, and we will come to that. But even on your own story, you should be able to tell me, at least, you should be able to at least give an assurance